marionette, as soon as his hunger was appeased, started to grumble and cry that he wanted a new pair of feet. But Mastro Geppetto, in order to punish him for his mischief, let him alone the whole morning. After dinner, he said to him,
"Why should I make your feet over again? To see you run away from home once more?"
I promise you that from now on I'll be good.
Boys always promise that when they want something.
I promise to go to school every day, to study, and to succeed.
Boys always sing that song when they want their own way.
But I'm not like other boys. I am better than all of them, and I always tell the truth. I promise you, Father, that I'll learn a trade, and I'll be the comfort and staff of your old age.
Geppetto, though trying to look very stern, felt his eyes fill with tears and his heart soften when he saw Pinocchio so unhappy. He said no more, but taking his tools and 2 pieces of wood, he set to work diligently. In less than an hour, the feet were finished. 2 slender, nimble little feet, strong and quick, modeled as if by an artist's hands.
Close your eyes and sleep.
Pinocchio closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep, while Geppetto stuck on the 2 feet with a bit of glue melted in an eggshell, doing his work so well that the joint could hardly be seen. As soon as the marionette felt his new feet, he gave 1 leap from the table and started to skip and jump around, as if he had lost his head from the very joy.
To show you how grateful I am to you, Father, I'll go to school now. But to go to school, I need a suit of clothes.
Geppetto did not have a penny in his pocket, so he made his son a little suit of flowered paper, a pair of shoes from the bark of a tree, and a tiny cap from a bit of dough. Pinocchio ran to look at himself in a bowl of water, and he felt so happy that he said proudly,
"Now I look like a gentleman."
Truly, but remember that fine clothes do not make a man unless they be neat and clean.
Very true, but in order to go to school, I still need something very important.
What is it?
An ABC book.
Oh, to be sure. But how shall we get it?
That's easy. We'll go to a bookstore and buy it.
And the money?
I have none.
Neither have I.
Pinocchio, although a happy boy always, became sad and downcast at these words. When poverty shows itself, even mischievous boys understand what it means.
What does it matter after all?
Geppetto jumped up from his chair. He put on his old coat full of darns and patches, then he ran out of the house without another word. After a while, he returned. In his hands, he had the ABC book for his son, but the old coat was gone. The poor fellow was in his shirt sleeves, and the day was cold.
Where's your coat, Father?
I have sold it.
Why did you sell your coat?
Oh, it was too warm.
Pinocchio understood the answer in a twinkling, and, unable to restrain his tears, he jumped up on his father's neck and kissed him over and over. See Pinocchio hurrying off to school with his new ABC book under his arm. As he walked along, his brain was busy planning hundreds of wonderful things, building hundreds of castles in the air.
In school today, I'll learn to read, tomorrow to write, and the day after tomorrow, I'll do arithmetic. Then, clever as I am, I can earn a lot of money. With the very first pennies I make, I'll buy Father a new cloth coat. Cloth, did I say? No, it shall be of gold and silver with diamond buttons. That poor man certainly deserves it. For after all, isn't he in his shirt sleeves because he was good enough to buy a book for me? Ha! On this cold day, too. Fathers are indeed good to their children.
As he talked to himself, he thought he heard sounds of pipes and drums coming from a distance. He stopped to listen. Those sounds came from a little street that led to a small village along the shore.
What can that noise be? What a nuisance that I have to go to school. Otherwise...
There he stopped, very much puzzled. He felt he had to make up his mind for either one thing or another. Should he go to school, or should he follow the pipes?
Today, I'll follow the pipes, and tomorrow I'll go to school. There's always plenty of time to go to school.
No sooner said than done. He started down the street, going like the wind. On he ran, and louder grew the sounds of pipe and drum. Zoom, 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 zoom. Suddenly he found himself in a large square full of people standing in front of a little wooden building painted in brilliant colors. Pinocchio walked up to a little boy.
What is that house?
Read the sign and you'll know.
I'd like to read, but somehow I can't today.
Oh, really? Then I'll read it to you. Know then that written in letters of fire, I see the words, Great Marionette Theater.
When did the show start?
It is starting now.
And how much does one pay to get in?
4 pennies.
Pinocchio, who was wild with curiosity to know what was going on inside, lost all his pride and said to the boy shamelessly,
Will you give me 4 pennies until tomorrow?
I'd give them to you gladly, but just now I can't give them to you.
For the price of 4 pennies, I'll sell you my coat.
If it rains, what shall I do with a coat of flowered paper? I could not take it off again.
Do you want to buy my shoes?
They're only good enough to light a fire with.
What about my hat?
Fine bargain indeed. A cap of dough? The mice might come and eat it from my head.
Pinocchio was almost in tears. He was just about to make one last offer, but he lacked the courage to do so. He hesitated. He wondered. He could not make up his mind. At last, he said,
Will you give me 4 pennies for the book?
I am a boy, and I buy nothing from boys.
A ragpicker was standing nearby and overheard the conversation.
I'll give you 4 pennies for the ABC book.
Then and there the book changed hands. And to think that poor old Geppetto sat at home in his shirt sleeves, shivering with cold, having sold his coat to buy that little book for his son. Quick as a flash, Pinocchio disappeared into the marionette theater. And then something happened which almost caused a riot. The curtain was up and the performance had started. Harlequin and Pulcinella were reciting on the stage, and as usual, they were threatening each other with sticks and blows. The theater was full of people, enjoying the spectacle and laughing till they cried at the antics of the 2 marionettes. The play continued for a few minutes, and then suddenly, without any warning, Harlequin stopped talking. Turning toward the audience, he pointed to the rear of the orchestra, yelling wildly at the same time.
Look, look! Am I asleep or awake? Or do I really see Pinocchio there?
Pulcinella turned to look.
Yes! Yes! It is Pinocchio!
Signora Rosara, peeking in from the side of the stage, shrieked with delight and waved as all the marionettes poured out of the wings.
Yes, it is! Pinocchio! Pinocchio!
Pinocchio! Come to me! Come to the arms of your wooden brothers!
At such a loving invitation, Pinocchio, with one leap from the back of the orchestra, found himself in the front rows. With another leap, he was on the orchestra leader's head. With a third, he landed on the stage. It is impossible to describe the shrieks of joy, the warm embraces, the knocks, and the friendly greetings with which that strange company of dramatic actors and actresses received Pinocchio. It was a heart-rending spectacle, but the audience, seeing that the play had stopped, became angry and began to yell.
The play! The play! We want the play!
The yelling was of no use for the marionettes. Instead of going on with their act, made twice as much racket as before, and, lifting up Pinocchio on their shoulders, carried him around the stage in triumph. At that very moment, the director came out of his room. He had such a fearful appearance that one look at him would fill you with horror. His beard was as black as pitch, and so long that it reached from his chin down to his feet. His mouth was as wide as an oven, his teeth like yellow fangs, and his eyes 2 glowing red coals. In his huge hairy hands a long whip made of green snakes and black cats' tails twisted together, swishing through the air in a dangerous way. At the unexpected apparition, no one dared even to breathe. One could almost hear a fly go by. Those poor marionettes, one and all, trembled like leaves in a storm.
Why have you brought such excitement into my theater?
Believe me, Your Honor, the fault was not mine.
Enough! Be quiet. I'll take care of you later.
As soon as the play was over, the director went to the kitchen where a fine big lamb was slowly turning on the spit. More wood was needed to finish cooking it. He called Harlequin and Pulcinella and said to them,
Bring that marionette to me. He looks as if he were made of well-seasoned wood. He'll make a fine fire for this spit.
Harlequin and Pulcinella hesitated a bit. Then, frightened by a look from their master, they left the kitchen to obey him. A few minutes later they returned, carrying a poor Pinocchio, who was wriggling and squirming like an eel.
Father, save me! I don't want to die! I don't want to die!
Fire Eater, this was really his name, was very ugly. But he was far from being as bad as he looked. Proof of this is that when he saw the poor marionette being brought in to him, struggling with fear and crying, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, he felt sorry for him and began first to waver and then to weaken. And finally, he could control himself no longer and gave a loud sneeze. At that sneeze, Harlequin, who until then had been as sad as a weeping willow, smiled happily and leaning toward the marionette, whispered to him,
Good news, brother mine. Fire Eater has sneezed, and this is a sign that he feels sorry for you. You are saved.
For be it known that while other people, when sad and sorrowful, weep and wipe their eyes, Fire Eater, on the other hand, had the strange habit of sneezing each time he felt unhappy. The way was just as good as any to show the kindness of his heart. After sneezing, Fire Eater, ugly as ever, cried to Pinocchio,
Stop crying. Your wails give me a funny feeling down here in my stomach and...
Gesundheit!
Thanks. Are your father and mother still living?
My father, yes. My mother I have never known.
Your poor father would suffer terribly if I were to use you as firewood. Poor old man. I feel sorry for him.
Gesundheit?
Thanks. However, I ought to be sorry for myself too just now. My good dinner is spoiled. I have no more wood for the fire, and the lamb is only half cooked. Never mind. In your place, I'll burn some other marionette. Hey there, officers!
At the call, 2 wooden officers appeared, long and thin as a yard of rope, with odd hats on their heads and swords in their hands.
Take Harlequin, tie him and throw him on the fire. I want my lamb well done.
Think how poor Harlequin felt. He was so scared that his legs doubled up under him and he fell to the floor. Pinocchio, at that heartbreaking sight, threw himself at the feet of Fire Eater.
Have pity! I beg of you, signore!
There are no signore here.
Have pity, kind sir!
There are no sirs here.
Have pity, Your Excellency?
On hearing himself addressed as Your Excellency, the director of the Marionette Theater sat up very straight in his chair, stroked his long beard, and, becoming suddenly kind and compassionate, smiled proudly to Pinocchio.
Well, what do you want from me now, marionette?
I beg for mercy for my poor friend Harlequin, who has never done the least harm in his life.
There is no mercy here, Pinocchio. I have spared you. Harlequin must burn in your place. I am hungry, and my dinner must be cooked.
Pinocchio stood up proudly and flung away his cap of dough.
In that case, my duty is clear. Come, officers, tie me up and throw me on those flames. No, it is not fair for poor Harlequin, the best friend that I have in this world, to die in my place.
These brave words made all the other marionettes cry. Even the officers, who were made of wood, also cried like 2 babies. Fire Eater, at first, remained hard and cold as a piece of ice, but then, Little by little, he softened and began to sneeze. And after sneezing, he opened wide his arms and said to Pinocchio,
You are a brave boy. Come to my arms and kiss me.
Pinocchio ran to him, and scurrying like a squirrel up the long black beard, he gave Fire Eater a loving kiss on the tip of his nose.
Has pardon been granted to me?
Pardon is yours. Well, tonight I shall have to eat my lamb only half cooked. But beware the next time, marionettes.
At the news that pardon had been given, the marionettes ran to the stage, and turning on all the lights, they danced and sang till dawn.